sponsoring all this weekend.
Hi, Tegan.
Hi, Tegan.
Hello.
You'll get used to it after about 3 years, so free to come back. Okay. Right, we've now got a great attendance. One speaker and one introduction, and we might even, if we have time, we'll give Steve back, because I promised him that he would have a chance to introduce himself. But since we have 2 speakers tonight, we might move him till next week if he wants to. Welcome everyone to our online meeting. We've got a great attendance tonight. We do have some apologies from Ken, Beth, Rob and Lyndall. Lyndall's in her pyjamas. She picked up the cold that my daughter had. And Beth and Rob are up in Mudgee, and Ken apologised because he's got to go to a nurse's function. So he's checking out the nurses. So guests, I'd like to introduce Phil Domashens, who's our speaker tonight, and he's speaking about a program that they're running in East Timor, and I won't jump into his presentation, but we'll hear more from him later. And Margaret, would you like to introduce Tegan?
Okay. Yes, this is Tegan. She's a student at Vincentia High School, and she's going to attend the Raipen camp at Mogo this weekend. And we're sponsoring her. And Tegan's in year 10 and lives at Sanctuary Point. Want to say hello?
Hello.
There you are. Would you like Tegan to say a few words?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Just talk about yourself.
So yeah, I'm Tegan. I don't really know what to say.
So you're in year 10.
I'm in year 10. I go to Vincentia High School.
Your favourite subject?
Some of my favourite subjects are textiles, photography, and Indonesian.
What do you enjoy doing outside school?
I like, I don't know, talking to cats outside of school at home and stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Okay,
Well,
thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Tegan. Thank you.
What we'll do, Tegan, is give you an hour to think about it, but you most likely don't know much about Raipen, but what would you like to get out of it? And so we'll ask you at the end of the night, and then we'll invite you back in a couple of weeks, and hopefully you can tell us what you actually got out of it, and hopefully the two align, or one is a bit more than the other. So yeah. We'll see what happens. So thank you for introducing yourself. As you can see on the screen, there's lots of old fuddy-duddies, and we're about half or 3/4 of the Rotary Club of Brindabella, the E Club of Brindabella, and you'll hear some things about what the club's doing tonight. But we do have a guest speaker, and I promised I would put him on early to give him a chance to talk about, surprisingly, East Timor. So we don't want Tegan talking to him in Indonesian, but I'd like to introduce Phil Domashens, who's an old scouting friend of mine. Maybe not that old, but he's a scouting friend of mine. And he's got involved in an exciting program that is delivering service in the East Timor area. So I will hand over to Phil, and he will share his screen with the presentation he has.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to say we really appreciate the invitation to talk to the club tonight. I'm the executive officer for the NTA East Indonesia Aid, and it's a really important thing for us. We're a small NGO, and we've been working out of the local area for 28 years, and we really need to boost our profile and sort of increase our support. So it's good to be able to talk to clubs. Now I'll share screen. It's just taking a second to get up. Okay, so NTA East Indonesia Aid. We used to be called Nusa, so I'll just make a small correction on that, Ross. It's not East Timor, it's actually West Timor that we work, but that's fine. So the NTA used to be called Nusa Tenggara Association, which means land to the southeast, which is where it is in Indonesia, but nobody knew what it meant, so we changed it to East Indonesia Aid. And our mission really is to reduce poverty amongst communities in rural areas of East Nusa Tenggara province of Indonesia. So in Eastern Indonesia, it's really our closest and most important neighbour. So I know you do projects in Timor-Leste, and we're just over the border in West Timor. So you can see our location. I don't know if the pointer points, but you can see we're around Kupang in West Timor. And we also focus around Maumere, the capital of Flores. And in these areas, we have some of the poorest people in the world. So 30% of the people are below the poverty line. And if you're working in Timor-Leste, you'll know this part of the world has a really long hunger season. It's about 6 to 8 months long. And that's really a drought season where nothing grows and the people pretty much starve during these periods. Malnutrition is really prevalent to the extent that there's stunted growth in about a third of the population. Actually, I spoke to a health student today at the ANU, and he's saying the latest statistics are showing it's well over 40% of the population has stunted growth. And you go, okay, so they're 2 inches shorter or they're 3 inches shorter or whatever it is in centimetres. What does that matter? I can't really pick that they're shorter because I don't know how tall they should be. But what it means is when they're malnourished, there's 2 really serious things that happen. One is they're extremely susceptible to disease and illness. So their life expectancy is much lower and their general health is very poor. The second thing is malnutrition in utero or in the first 2 years of life causes permanent brain damage, and it impacts on concentration, and that impacts on how they perform at school and how they will go through school and their job and career prospects. It really means if they're malnourished in those early years, the impacts of that will be with them for life. So why are they malnourished? Well, it's short of food, but it comes back to that hunger season. During the hunger season, there's a lack of variety and there's a lack of volume. And of course, there's illiteracy, infant mortality, and lifespans amongst the worst in Indonesia. In terms of malnutrition, this province is the worst in Indonesia, and it's some of the worst in the world, right here on our doorstep. Here's just a few photos. I mean, I think that the top left one is an interesting one because that's what it's like in Flores, the very steep mountains. And a lot of the people we work with farm that country. And it's similar you would have seen that in Timor, a lot of steep country. You see to the right, just a small kiosk or shop. See the people, they're happy people, they're lovely people, and they really enjoy talking to you and meeting with you. A few more just happy, a few more snaps of the sort of people that we're dealing with. Whoops, we jumped. So, you can see people that are just generally happy with life, love to see us. And here's a couple of stories. The one on the left here, is actually in West Timor up in the mountains. And it's one of the worst. I've travelled through much of Indonesia through my career and on holidays, and they're amongst the poorest that I've seen anywhere. These people really, really are in bad nick. And I guess the thing, if you work in Timor-Leste, it's very similar. But in West Timor, there's no profile, and there's very little help goes in there at all. There's nobody sort of going out there. The one on the right, this little kid eating sweet corn, really amazed me because this kid's father apologised to me. This is just out of Kupang in West Timor, and this kid's father apologised to me because all they had for me was sweet corn to eat. And I thought, what a strange thing this was, that this person that was living in poverty and malnourished will apologise to me, that comes from one of the best areas of the world, Canberra here, and with a reasonable income, and that they would actually apologise that they only had this food. Of course, it should be me apologising to them. What's our vision? Well, I spoke about before. It's really about improving the livelihoods and food security of these poor rural communities in the areas around Mulmeri and Flores and around the Kupang and West Timor area. How long have we been around? We've been around since 1987. So we're well established, and we've built up slowly but surely until we think we've got our program pretty well sussed. And we have a very strong volunteer support. In Australia, there's only one person that's paid, and that's me, and I'm paid for 2 days a week. The whole organisation, other than that, runs off volunteer effort. And that means that almost all our dollars go straight to Indonesia. It gives us maximum bang for buck. So in Australia, our key office, our key area is here in Canberra, but we have arms in Melbourne, Sydney. We're trying to get some going in Brisbane and Adelaide. We have about 40 active volunteers. We have a board. Now, we're really lucky with our board because they're all volunteer, but we've got the most amazing breadth of experience. I'm really pleased with them. And a large part of my effort is trying to communicate what work we're doing and work on fundraising and information sharing. In Indonesia, we've been there for 28 years, and our office is in Kupang. You can see there, we have a number of staff, a project manager, 20 extensions officers, and 5 technical specialists. What we're trying to do is we're enhancing the skill set within Indonesia. We want the Indonesians from the local area to have the expertise to run this project. That means we're cost effective, but we're sustainable into the future. They will be able to keep going. We run trips up there, field trips up there twice a year. We're about to go next week. I'll be going up for 5 weeks, and then we go again in November. So we have 3 main projects. We have income generation and food security as our priority one. So how do we work with the communities? Well, we have 192 cooperatives, each of 10 to 15 households, just like this one. And so when we go up twice a year, we meet with all these groups and we talk to them. Now, these groups have to plan what they want. They have to tell us what they want. They have to come and say, this is what we want to do as a community. And then we work with them and try to help them. And we have a principle of self-help. As you probably know, if you give people things, they don't appreciate it. But if you say, well, you have to contribute local materials, you have to do the labour, and you have to do it, put in a little bit of the money, they have an ownership. And for that, they will appreciate it, they will maintain it, and they will make sure it's there for the long term. We focus on the rural sector, and we focus on things like improving the sorts of seeds and materials they use, teaching them how to better prepare the ground, how to better grow plants. And we concentrate in cocoa, vegetables, livestock, seaweed, and traditional woven cloths. The one that I think is really exciting, seaweed was exciting, went really well and really boomed, but the one that we're really going well with at the moment is vegetables, because it goes hand in hand with the water tanks that we're putting in. And I might talk about that later. So we have rotating credit as part of this. So each of the groups will have the opportunity to borrow money to buy more equipment. In these very poor communities, many of the people don't have any money. All they do is eat what they can get. So when you start to give them a little bit of credit, they can borrow and they can buy things, which then allow them to make an income. And once they start making a small income, they can buy more things, they can get things to help them to build up business, to become, and to make more money. But they need a start, and the start is often very, very small. We're building up the in-country technical expertise, and we work with experts from the Indonesian agriculture colleges. We train in business, and we have small infrastructure projects by local people for water supplies, water pumps, household toilets and fences. Our second project is water and sanitation. And this is probably one that is the easiest to measure and has the most dramatic impact. So we give grants for local communities to construct sustainable wells, tanks and toilets. One of the things we've really been working on, not only do we try to put these in communities, we try to put them in schools, because a lot of the learning and passing on of good ways to do things is when kids learn them at school. And it's really important that we put toilets in. We've actually been concentrating. There's a couple of schools that still don't have toilets. But having toilets there is very important for keeping kids at school, particularly girls. So when you put in water, what happens? You go, oh, well, yes, that's simple. They have good drinking water. Well, that's great. And it is. It means their health's better. But I don't know if some of you have been into Timor-Leste, I understand, and you will probably have seen that in some areas, just like in these areas of Indonesia, you will see kids that are of very young age, maybe 6 or 7, with a stick over their shoulder, with a bucket on each side, and they're buckling under the weight as they cart that water up the hills to their homes. I saw some kid that would have been about 4 or 5 struggling up this hill with buckets of water, and I just couldn't believe it. The kid I felt so sorry for him, and this is the sorts of activities we need to help them. Not only is it sort of arduous, it actually it has the potential to cause them some serious harm at that young age. The thing that has really come out that has surprised us just how successful it's been is once we've put in regular water supplies, they've been able to plant nurseries to grow their seedlings and personal vegetable gardens. And with these vegetable gardens, what happens is they can sell some vegetables to make money. But they also have more vegetables for their own home eating during the hunger season, that dry season. So they have more food during the off season, but they also have a greater diversity. So a really important thing in tackling it's simple but important thing in terms of tackling malnutrition. And the interesting thing too is once they put tanks in, if they get a little bit of income from selling vegetables, they can then afford to pay a truck to come in during the drought periods, a water truck to fill up the tanks. And our third major area is education. And we work with 60 primary and secondary schools, each of 100 to 150 students, and 16 kindergartens. And we provide libraries, books, scholarships, teacher training, improved facilities and infrastructure. In these rural areas, they cannot attract good qualified teachers. No good qualified teacher really wants to go to these remote villages because they get low pay and they're so isolated. So they have their teachers are called guru honour or honorary teachers, and they try their best and they're keen, but often they're just people from a local village that have done a reasonable amount of schooling that come in, and pretty much they may not know what the curriculum is. They haven't been given any training. And part of what we do is we try to give small training sessions each year to try and get the teachers, to try and give these teachers a little bit of a start. We provide them with the curriculum books so they know what they're teaching, and we build up libraries and we build up other infrastructure. We also give scholarships to the poorer kids to help them to stay at school. Scholarships aren't a lot of money, They're only about $15 a year, but they make a big difference in terms of keeping these kids at school. So how have lives changed? Well, Ibu, which means Mrs. Julia, or Yulia, from Hubby Village in Flores, she's in this collective. And if you look at this vegetable patch that they've got here, it's actually on a bamboo frame. It's lifted up off the ground with a bit of soil on, and they kick this off. And this is actually amazing. So 40 women in this piloted these bamboo platforms and got these vegetables going. And they used the tanks with off the roof water for watering them. And this proved to be incredibly successful. And then we're trying to expand as quickly as they can. So they grow tomatoes, beans, marrows, cabbages, chilies and cucumbers. So what were the initial results? Well, additional food for family, but household income up 20 to 30%, a very important bonus. So what are the areas that we're looking for support? I'll just talk to you where we're looking for support and how you might be able to help us. Water is one of the priority areas for assistance. And it's there because they need good, clean drinking water, and we need to break this burden of everybody having to cart water. Now, we've been talking to some local Rotary groups, and recently I spoke to Canberra South. Canberra South are saying they would like to help us by pulling together a combined Rotary exercise next year. And they're saying if they can get this up, we'd be looking at local, national and global funding, and we probably focus it on building these tanks, which you can see the concrete tanks there. So Canberra South are very keen. Burley Griffin is a group that's been assisting us to some extent for many years and would support this. And so we think we've got some interstate interest. So we'd be very keen to if your club could actually assist with this as well. So looking at what we're looking at there is tanks. So they're about 15,000 litres in capacity. The cost is $520 each. We provide $400, and the community groups provide $120, and all the labour and materials. So they pick up all the local sand. This is a project that we've built up over a long period. We've trialled different approaches, and we now have it nailed. The tanks that we build have a long life, and the people that we use can build them. It's a program that we can accelerate rapidly without dropping off standards. And it's one of the things that really makes a big difference in people's lives. So in ballpark figures, and for $100,000, we could get 200 tanks, a bit more. For $250,000, we could get over 500 tanks. So that gives a perspective of where we might go. There's other ways that you can help us, and your club might want to assist with a smaller activity. You might want to buy just a few tanks or whatever. But you might know contacts. You might want to join our monitoring trips, which are in May, June, and November, December. Given that and I spoke to Ross earlier, and he said you have people in Timor-Leste, they might be able to jump over the border and come and join us in Kupang. So we'd be very keen to talk to you about that. We're interested in getting the word out there about what we're doing. So if anybody wants to give us their email address, we could put you onto our newsletter list. And we run occasional fundraisers such as a trivia night and a fundraising dinner. If you want to come along to those, we'd love to have you along. I guess the message again is it only takes a small difference to really improve the lives of some of these people right here on our doorstep. So that was the key things, the messages I wanted to give tonight, and I really appreciate you giving me the time to talk. I might now open up for questions.
I'll start off, Phil, with the first question. Why has the Indonesian government forgotten about these provinces?
Well, it's not so much that they've forgotten about them. I guess it's a question of just how big the problem they've got in Indonesia is, and how much work they've got to do. But they're along. It is, I believe, the poorest province in Indonesia. They are working in some areas. They're trying to get going. We try to make sure that we focus our efforts so we're going in the same areas they are, so that we're not duplicating. But it's really about the problem is so big there that they need a bit of assistance to really get it going a bit further.
So there's no political or religious reasons then? It's purely economic?
Yeah, Indonesia's trying to spread its influence. The Indonesian government is trying to move out, is trying to get programs going, but it's a very big issue. I don't believe it is. But of course, the eastern area of Indonesia is the Christian area.
Yes.
So the majority of people in this part of Indonesia are Christian, but I'm not sure that they're singled out because they're Christian.
Phil, it's Steve here. You might want to get in contact with the Rotary Club because they've done multiple projects in New Guinea and Nepal, and haven't done much overseas in recent times, but they were spending a lot of money and were assisted by various counter clubs with donations to do water supplies and various other things in New Guinea over the last 10 or 15 years. And if you're a guest speaker down there, then you might be able to get some sponsorships through that as well.
I'm sorry, I missed which club you said. It sounded interesting.
The Rotary Club of Kuma.
Kuma.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
The guy to talk to is Peter Davis.
Okay.
He's done about 30 trips to New Guinea.
Okay.
Phil, it's Ross Ellis speaking. I was just wondering to what extent AusAid's involved, and are there other countries' AIDS programs also involved?
Okay. So just a small correction. AusAid got made defunct and merged into DFAT. But so the Foreign Affairs, so my organisation is funded through DFAT. Nearly 3/4 of our funding comes from DFAT, or the old AusAid, and that's how we do a lot of our work. But to do that, we can accelerate our work with private donations, but we need to make in the order of at least 20% of our money from private donations in order to justify the DFAT money. Now, with the DFAT money, the Australian money, yes, that's the main part of how we fund our activities. And so to get that money, we have to ensure that our project focuses on where it's needed and meets Australian standards and priorities.
What about other countries, Phil?
Okay, so in that part of Indonesia, are you saying which other countries are involved?
Yes.
Various countries get involved from time to time in different areas. None of them, where we work, we make sure that we're not sort of duplicating activities. So there's no other countries working specifically in our activities. But other countries come from time to time. I think there was a major project in the area on fisheries, funded through the European areas, been on for about 3 years, but that's now finished. Yeah, and where else is there? So there are other people operating in the broader region, but not in our specific sites. I'm not sure where you're going there, Ross. I guess one of the things you're picking up is that I haven't actually worked on the specifics of which other countries are working in which locations. We just make sure that we talk to the Indonesian government and other NGOs to make sure that we don't duplicate.
Yeah, I was just wondering who coordinated all that and whether in fact there was a need to.
Yeah, The trouble with coordinating is gets you into the big NGOs. With our organisation, we're lean and mean. If we have to engage in a cooperative fashion with all the other NGOs, it actually means having staff that go to regular meetings and do things, which becomes, which takes a lot of resources. So you find the NGOs such as World Wildlife Fund and other big organisations like that have staff that are devoted to coordinating between NGOs.
Thanks.
Phil, I was going to ask the question about security in the area. Is there any, local uprisings or anything that where you have concerns about security, or is it a pretty out of the way area?
No, we don't have any concerns about security. We've been working there for 28 years and things have been fine. The only issues we had were during the Timor-Leste crisis, and that obviously impacted on West Timor as well. But I mean, that was a long time ago and things are very stable now.
Great. And also, you mentioned microfinancing or revolving credit. I was just, we had the last two meetings, we've been talking about the fact that Hewlett-Packard, where I work, have just donated $9.5 million through Kiva. And I was just wondering if you are using any of those sites to try and raise funds for the people that you're supporting.
Kiva?
Yeah.
I don't know that. I
Okay.
don't know that, but it's an online site for seeking sponsorship funding.
Yes. Yep.
So
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, that'd be good. We're actually trying to gear up. We're putting a lot of effort into where we're going. We're looking at crowdfunding, expanding our efforts. We are with Give now, but certainly we're looking to expand our efforts in those areas.
No, asking a question, if you don't mind.
Yep.
With the planting of the crops, who supplies the seed?
Well, it depends a bit on the specifics of which one you're talking about. But generally, what happens is we work very closely with the agricultural services within Indonesia. So they assess all the different seed stocks, all the different species, and they come up with the ones that they think are optimum. And then we try them in the area, and then we have nurseries there. So we'll try and increase the number of plants within a nursery and spread that out. Once you get a number of plants going, it may be that they can grow them themselves using the tanks and a nursery. But currently we're looking at replacing a lot of the old cocoa trees. So they cut those out, and the new stocks are far more productive. They've been proven. So that's a long-term project, but it's basically about working across the broader area, getting in all the expert knowledge we can, and trying to improve things progressively over time.
Phil, you mentioned that one of your major areas of focus is water, and from what you said, basically potable water, drinking water. What's the situation with groundwater there? Is there any potential for irrigation projects to help them with their food security?
Eastern Indonesia, when people think of Indonesia, they often think of the very highly fertile soils,
yes,
and the high rainfalls. In Eastern Indonesia, the fertility of the ground is much more akin to what we have in Australia, and it has the same sort of seasons. So it's not particularly fertile, but there are areas where there is groundwater, and they'll put wells in to try and get water, which generally, most of the areas I were, they'd still be bucketing the water out and hand watering the vegetables. there were areas that I saw that they were doing irrigation. There was areas where they'd saved, where the cooperatives borrowed enough money to get a water pump, so they would pump it in wells, and they would irrigate wide areas for sweet corn. But generally, that was sort of in isolated areas where they thought they could get the income and where there was enough groundwater. Most areas there's not enough groundwater because it's that really hilly, steep country.
Right.
So we have a variety of challenges, and the area is not uniform. It's quite different. But where they can, they do irrigate. Some of the farmers, what we're teaching them is really basic. It's amazing to go into the cocoa areas, and some of the farmers still haven't got onto the idea that they need to terrace. So we have to teach them to terrace, so that they actually retain the water, and so that they can put compost in the holes to grow the plants. So some areas that what we're teaching is really basic, but other areas, they're much more progressive, and they've done a lot more work.
Out of interest, Phil, what's your background?
My background, I worked in natural resources, but I worked in national parks, forestry, and city parks. But in 1998, I became the manager for Ashmore Reef National Nature Reserve, which is an area where all the illegal immigration took off. So I was in the hot seat when that took off. But it's also the area that traditional Indonesian fishermen are allowed to come down to using sailing boats to fish in Australian waters. So that's how I got connected into Indonesia. So I worked on that for a few years, and it was fascinating. But I took a stint and went up to Indonesia and worked on coral reef management up there. When I came back to Australia, after a while I moved into fisheries, and then I moved into working on Indonesian fisheries and getting projects going. And I became redundant from the Australian government about 18 months ago. The last exercise I had was to go up into this part of Indonesia, putting safety equipment on the traditional sailing boats, because from an Australian perspective, we don't want people being lost at sea. So I was fitting solar panels and batteries and radios and navigation lights to traditional Indonesian sailing boats. Then when I left the government, I got picked up very quickly with the NTA. I was very interested in their work, so I approached them straight away and started working with them. But really, it's a passion for me. I spend a lot of time on it.
Okay, do we have any other questions?
Well, it's Bruce, Phil. I'd like to commend you on the work that's being done. It sounds like a very necessary program, and I endorse the approach where you're helping them to help themselves, and I think that's the right and fits very much into the Rotary approach to these things too. And I think as a club, we should look seriously at what we might be able to do. So thank you for coming on.
I really appreciate those comments, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I guess there was a few things that came out of that. One of them is the lead that I should talk to Peter Davis at Cooma. Ross has said I should talk to him about something. But leading on from that, Gail Freeman, I think, is currently the president of Canberra South. So I'll let her know that I've spoken to you, and if you can support that greater project, that'd be great. But I think you do that amongst yourselves. I'm happy to talk or be involved or talk again. And if you have anything else or want to go on our email list, on our newsletter list, I'd be very pleased to add you.
Yes, I think I can say I'll be interested in being added to that. But the other thing that for the club's information is that Canberra South through Gale are looking, as Gale is one of our cluster under a district governor's representative. She was saying that they're looking at trying to set up a Rorke's project so that members who want to go can contribute money through Rorke's to help support the activities over there. And hopefully then Rotarians will look at booking in and going over with skills that can be of value. So hopefully we'll see it on the Rorke's pages in the not too distant future. So thanks, Phil, for that.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
So you're welcome to stay on for the last half of the meeting. It's fairly short, but we'll just be covering some upcoming events and things like that. And but if you have to leave, that's okay too. Feel free to drop off.
I'll drop out. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Phil.
Phil.
Oh, back over to it. Oh, it's changing screen.
Ross, it might be worthwhile looking at Kiva Zip, where we can actually direct the money into areas that that we're interested in. I'll have to look, I might look in as part of the research I'm doing. I'll see what's involved with that.
Okay. It gives you a focus definitely for your report next week in terms of how can we use Kiva to help them if they're not using external funding for their microfinancing at the moment, then it may be an opportunity to link them in.
Yeah, and it's right in our backyard, so it's it'd be a very, very good area to look at.
Yep. Okay, let's throw it open. Does anyone have any business that they want to bring up? Anything they want to put before the club? I had 2 items that were on my email and I didn't dig out my email, and I've just realised that one of them was the Ripen. We put out a call on last weekend saying did anyone have any objections to the club sponsoring a member, and on Monday where we found out that everyone was, all the people that responded were in favour. We got Margaret to put in the request very quickly and we were lucky to pick up Tegan. So hopefully she'll be as energetic as we found Olivia was last year, and we will welcome her to club activities in the future. So Tegan, I'll bounce the question off you now. What do you hope to get out of Ripen?
Making friends, definitely getting better skills in team and communication, and just having a lot of fun in general.
That's what it's all about.
Well, hopefully in a couple of weeks you can drill into the skills that you did get, and we look forward to hearing about that.
And particularly how much fun you had.
Okay, right. Does anyone have any other business, anything else they wanted to bring up tonight?
It's Bruce.
Yep.
Boss. One issue, we've been circulating a draft application for a youth service award for
Yes, that's what it was.
the 2 clubs. Yeah. As I said in my response, I think there's a couple of things that we need to bear in mind. One is that we, as a club, E-Club actually received a youth service award 2 years ago, district award, for the program. So if we are going again, then we need to, I guess, look at a different approach. One of it is that we're now doing it as a joint project with the Sunrise Club. So that's a bit of a different avenue, and we've moved, I guess, up a level of structure within the Dream Cricket organisation, that we've now got in Canberra a fully qualified facilitator in Jonathan Lyle, and that we are sort of moving again. But I think we need to, and perhaps it might be worth a word with Rob. It's a pity he's not online tonight, because he seems to be closely associated with the committee that looks at district awards, and it might be worth asking him what the sort of response might be to a second proposal. And it also brings up an issue that talking with Jonathan the other day, that he's looking at the possibility of another foundation grant to come up. Now, I think our situation is that we still have some funds remaining out of the previous grant from 2 years ago, because it was specifically to run a gala day in the Canberra Queanbeyan area. So again, we'd need to look at a grant with a slightly different twist, if you like, which could mean that we could have another point of difference in the approach that we make. Ross, have you got any comments on that situation?
Yes, Bruce. My thought about it is that it really doesn't vary a lot about what we do, as you're well aware. And I guess, therefore, we're going to be sized up with other groups that do this community service or type of work. So all we can do is put in what we've been doing. We haven't, unless we have some different initiative ourselves, it's probably very difficult to recreate the image. I personally believe we should just, at the moment, put it in the way it is and tell it the way it is. If that's deemed to be successful, then that's good. I guess
I was just going to say, let them make the decision.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and the work that's done is excellent. It can't be denied, and I mean that's what happened. I think with Sunrise itself, when it used to run the programs for children at the United Nations Assembly.
Muna.
Yes, Muna, that's it. Year after year after year, it was a superb program, and but you couldn't vary it much, the application. So I think, it's a great program. Let them determine it, and all the work that's been put into it, particularly by you and now Jonathan as well, is something that they can assess.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I'm happy with that.
Well, the other thing is, if you actually look at it from the point of view, and it's probably using a university expression, but looking at the impact that the program is having, whilst the program may not change that much from year to year, it is growing, of course. But the thing is this, that the impact it's having is quite large. Looking at shall we say, the number of schools that are involved, the number of participants, and even the appointment of a full-time, a facilitator. Those are giant steps being made. So I think that those, it's well worth putting that forward. Maybe it's just the marketing person and me talking. I don't know.
No. And I think, as Ross said, it's also a matter of what other programs you're.
Yeah, absolutely.
It may be that we still sit out there at the top, or something else might have come in which is deemed to be this year a better thing, and that's not our decision to make. That's made by the committee. Yeah.
Well, there is one thing within our president's gift, and that's going to be the application for the presidential citation. I noticed that it's pretty well due now, isn't it?
Yep.
Are you going to? Do you think we're in a position to
I
apply
was
for it?
talking to Beth about it, and I think my problem was that I set my ambitions too high at the beginning of the year, and so membership and fundraising we haven't made, but I don't know if how much that counts for it. So I was looking at the requirements on the Rotary website, but I hadn't actually gone through the detail, but I'll have a look at it.
I think to do is just tick off those boxes. I don't think it's so much a quantum as having made progress in those areas that are considered important. So I think it's well worth going after.
Yep. Okay.
Just to go back to what Bruce said, Ross, and coming in with the district grant, Beth mentioned in an email this evening that tomorrow's the cut-off time, and it would therefore be very difficult for us to get a district grant anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say that Margaret and I were talking and at the district assembly, and her ambition is to actually get a kit down on the south coast because she'd like to introduce into some of the schools down there. And so I think that will be one of the things on the list for next year. So I won't steal her thunder, but look forward to us, spreading across the district. And I think that's the great thing about being an E-Club. We've got Cooma, we've got the mountains, and we've got Canberra. So there's no reason why we cannot be offering the same services right across the district.
Yeah.
The other thing on the district awards to let you know is that I've been working to get out of Natalie what she's been doing in youth, because I think as our youth representative, she's doing amazing things with the Interact Club. She's been speaking at numerous other clubs, and I see on Facebook she's just come back from Bungendore Club, and she's taking the Interactors to Seoul. So I think she is well worth a nomination for the Youth Involvement Award in the district. So that will be going in this weekend as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Top effort, Ross. That's good. I endorse that totally. I'm sure everyone else will too. But she really.
Yeah.
It's amazing how hard it is to get information out of people when they think they're going to be nominated for something. Not that I told her what the thing is. I just said I wanted what she'd been doing in youth. But the email had come out from district only a week or two before, so she may have suspected. Okay. Anyone got any other things? I suppose we should have asked Norman Judy to report back on their trip, since they deigned to miss our last meeting. They might have actually done something exciting. You're on mute.
I see a little prompting going on there with elbows being dug in.
You realise that we actually attended the last meeting because we just arrived in Noumea. We were sitting in a hotel. It said 8 o'clock. Yes. That's good. So there we were. And now, today, we've just come back. We've just almost unpacked, and we've just had a meal, and here we are again. Cool.
Fantastic.
But we're not.
I think
We're sort of slightly zombie-like.
We were up at 4:45 this morning to get here.
How's your French?
Très bon, merci. Okay.
Oh, très bien.
Yes.
With the something in France, we got quite good at French.
But we did have a very nice trip. Noumea and New Caledonia generally is quite interesting, and it's a pretty poor country. It's very limited in the tourism it can offer because it just doesn't have the infrastructure or even the culture to sort of make it happen somehow. It's very laid back, but we had a very nice time there, and it was interesting because you can visit lovely islands and you can see how, I think you can see how the native population somehow copes with these tourists, but they don't really sort of get it all together. So you have to make your own excursions and your own schedule and your own activities, and they'll come along and they'll help, and they love having you, but I don't get the impression that they're really sort of out there knowing what to do next. Yeah, maybe underestimating them, but yeah. It was a couple of weeks.
Shortly after I came to Australia, I was working for P&O, the shipping company.
Oh, there's plenty of them over there.
Yeah, well, I was responsible for organising shore excursions for passengers in places like Noumea, and the school kids used to love us because when the ships were in. When the cruise ships were in, they had to declare a public holiday because we needed all the school buses and the trucks for the excursions. So we always felt that we were very welcome there. But you're quite right. It is not
being public holidays this time, but there were boats in every day, two boats at a time. And I did notice that in the Isle of Pines, someone was, I presume P&O, were paying a couple of native girls to make wreaths and garlands and things, and they would then give them away to the guests from the ships. So the people on the ships obviously thought this was pretty good. They all went away with a rather Roman-like, on their heads. But someone had to pay the natives to mount a stall and do that weaving. And they gave away a lot of stuff that I presume P&O paid the natives to do these stalls.
Yeah, well, we're talking 50 years ago in my case, and if things are primitive now, you should have seen what it was like then. Yeah. And you're quite right. We a lot of the stuff that we actually had to organise it, or rather, to be absolutely honest, the port agents were very deeply involved as well. But it was quite a liaison job to get on side with the local authorities, including the schools, so the children could have a public holiday, so we could have the use of whatever transport was available. But I would imagine things have improved since then.
Yeah, I can't really comment, but I did notice we went. A bus load of about 25 of us went to a big lagoon area, and we get off the bus and there's a 15-minute walk to this beautiful lagoon which is just washed by seawater, and there's a girl there, a native girl, taking your entrance fee. There's nothing to stop you, just walking past it, but anyway, you stop and there's this big sign up that says cost of doing this was 200 of their lovely Pacific francs. For ordinary mortals, 1,000 if you happen to have a P&O badge. But I thought it was a bit rough. Everyone's paying it quite happily, and it was really weird because there was no real control on it. She was just vaguely counting, but the difference, if 5 times the price if you happen to be a P&O guy, was a bit much, I thought.
Yeah, well, they had to fumigate the P&O people, you see.
Well, that's a bit rough.
I think culturally it was quite interesting. We had 3 locals sort of acting as skippers on the catamarans we were on, and they were terrific. They were very good and very professional, enormously competent. They were lovely, but they were very aware that the game needed to be lifted in a lot of the tourism areas because they're so laid back that most of them just very
at least you had buses. Back in the days I'm talking about, there were flat top trucks with bolted down benches and canvas over them to provide the passengers with a bit of shade. That was the extent of it, and that, of course, is exactly what the kids were using to get to school. Believe me, it couldn't have been more primitive unless you were going in on a pony or horseback. It was. Yeah.
But they did have a system there called the bus, which were little citrons or whatever. Because I was there in that time too.
Yeah.
And the other obvious fact was that the costs are sky high. Again, this little bus that took us to the pool and then brought us back cost something like $40 per person.
Yeah.
This round trip, which was about an hour altogether, and it just seemed absolutely exorbitant to me. Everything was very.
But going back to your point, Ross, of course, you get a couple of ships in there. It takes care of the local transport. Believe me, whatever transport.
Yes, I can understand. Yeah.
Anything that's got wheels.
Okay, well, we're coming up to the end of the meeting. I was hoping to announce that I was looking for a volunteer for next meeting because we were going to Seoul, but my wife told me that she can't leave work till Friday, so we're going to be flying out Saturday morning. So I will still be here for the next meeting, and so we're actually away for the midweek, the week between the two meetings. And hopefully I'll dial in for the social meeting on the Monday night from Seoul if we have broadband or equivalent over there, or nothing exciting on, one or the other. There's lots of activities being lined up for the conference, and if anyone wants me to talk to anyone or bring anything back, feel free to send me an email and I will do my best. But I'm just finding how quickly the program is filling out. With all the official and unofficial activities.
If you see anything on Probus, would you grab it for me, please?
Okay, right.
I'll pay on your return.
So did Probus normally have a display?
Pardon?
Did Probus have a display in Sydney?
I would imagine that they could well have. I'm not sure. I imagine they could well have, yes.
So the thing you'd like me to bring back is a membership form, isn't it? Signed out.
No. But anything that you think is attractive.
Are you old enough to join, Ross?
I haven't investigated Probus yet.
No. I'm talking the other Ross.
I happen to be the incoming Rotary District Probus chairman.
Oh, right.
Right. There you go.
So we're going to start calling you Sir.
No, not at all.
Maybe we need to have a fine session at the changeover for things that have happened this year. Yeah. And I'm sure Ross will be in for a pretty penny. Okay. Does anyone have any last matters?
Sorry, Ross, it's Bruce.
Yep.
On the line. We're leaving on Saturday. We're going to be away for about 7 weeks to the UK and Norway, the Baltic, and so I won't. The next probably 3 meetings. I'll try to get in online if we happen to have a Wi-Fi where we are, or a contact. And with the examples that we've had with Norm, it's been that they've been able to make it somehow. So I'll do what I can. But anyway, good luck to everyone, and I hope we will get back and be able to catch up with what's happened.
Okay.
Ross,
Yep.
Ross, just one thing. John asked me to let you know that we're getting our first student in from Timor-Leste arriving next Sunday.
Oh.
And he'll be going to Bega Club.
Yeah, that's appropriate, isn't it? Yeah.
Just thought you'd be interested.
Yeah, that is. Well done.
Well, if we can find an excuse to get them up to Canberra, I'm sure we'd be happy to host them. So just keep that in mind. And I've got to say that I think that Steve's been his most talkative tonight. We've got to get him, involve him a bit more in the club. So we'll work on that in the future. And if there's no other business, thank you very much. And we will see you in a fortnight if you can't get to any of the intermediate activities.
Are we having the social meeting next Monday night?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Okay.
Look forward to that.
Okay.
Good night.